This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview, allow it to clash into the culture around us, and when we're done, if it goes really well, we'll entertain, educate, enlighten you just a little bit, and hopefully help you in your journey of faith. Now, Chris, this is actually going to be part two of an interview that we're doing with a friend of yours who has interviewed you multiple times as you have promoted the film, book, your life, your ministry, and you have been gracious enough to introduce our audience to him in the first episode. Yeah. We're going to do it again.
Yeah, that first episode was pretty awesome. I love hearing these stories. Yeah. I'm a real story person. So this is going to be part two of our interview with Jay Heilman, who has a show called Kingdom Builders. He interviews all kinds of people from the entertainment industry, movies, film, music, athletes, whatever. He's interviewed a bunch of them. And so we're going to carry that over and let you hear some more of our conversation with Jay Heilman.
Well, Jay, as you've interviewed specifically musicians, Christian artists over the course of the year, I mean, is there any particular story about a song that all of a sudden everyone seems to know that you're like, I had no idea that's how we got to this song? I mean, is that behind the scenes kind of moment? Do you have anything that pops in your head?
You know, there's really songs that are huge songs that just minister to the church, minister to people. But the ones that I find that are the best ones are those that minister to people who don't know Jesus. The ones that aren't they're not so much overly preachy, like kind of the ones you would hear in church, but those really honest songs that could get a hold of somebody that doesn't know Christ. The songs that I love the most are the story songs, the songs that the artists take their own life stories and how they struggled or something that they encountered that they just didn't know how to overcome. And they shared that, raw and honest story with, music fans. And I think that makes all the difference. We have the worship songs and stuff that, we hear in church every Sunday that, lead people to the throne and everything and uplift and glorify the name of Christ. But then you have those songs that are especially ministering to those who are not yet in the doors of the church. And those are the songs that I find most fascinating because those artists bare their souls to be able to write a song that can get a hold of somebody so that God can do that work in them. Yeah. There's just songs that have come into my life personally that have really ministered to me and reminded me that, God is still present in my life, whether I see him or not. And my life verse has always been Romans 8:28. It was Romans 8:28 before my first wife passed away, and my life verse still today. Romans 8:28 says that we know in all things that God works for the good for those who love him, who are calling according to his purpose. And even through that, God still had a purpose for me. And he used songs, he used music to get that message to me. And I can't be thankful enough for stuff like that because I listen to music all the time. I feature music, promote music and everything, but when music hits me personally on a whole new level, that means more to me than anything else.
Who would you say was the most recognizable guest that you've had that also showed the deepest humility?
I don't know. A lot of the ones that I interviewed Chris Tomlin. I've interviewed him a couple times, and one of the questions I asked him was, what does it mean to you? And this was the interview that I forgot to hit record on. I asked him, what does it mean to you when you have people singing your songs, getting saved, praising God in church every Sunday, like songs like Holy Forever. I said, what does it mean to you when you look at the fact of how big of an impact that song has on the church? And his answer was like, it wasn't like, oh, well, I just write good songs and like that. He's like, God has given me the ability to be able to put words together that can lead his church to him in honor, glory, and worship. He's like, I'm just an instrument that God has used. He's like, I am nothing. God has used me to carry out his will, to lead people in worship and stuff. And I think recently that was probably one of the coolest answers to a question that I get. Because, I have talked to artists that kind of have a big head. They're like, oh yeah, because I'm just a good songwriter kind of thing. They didn't say it like that, but that's the way it came across to me. But
Sure.
Chris Tomlin's like he's the biggest name in worship music. So when he responds like that, it was really cool. And he told me a story, and this is why I was so upset that I forgot to hit record on that conversation. But I asked him, I said, he was at the Charlie Kirk memorial service that they did, which was attended by, I want to say like close to 100,000 people in person, but there were millions of people watching online. And I said, what is it like, leading people in worship? You have all those people in front of you, but then you have all these millions of people watching online. I said, were you nervous at all? He's like, yes, I was absolutely nervous. I'm like, whoa, Chris Tomlin gets nervous. I said, that's a shock. He's like, no, but he's like, I feel that was the most significant point in my life, that God used me to be able to draw all of these people, many of whom don't know Jesus, back to God. And he said, that's the biggest, he's like, if I can point that the biggest thing I've ever done, he's like, that was it. Wow. So I think hearing stuff like that's really cool. And again, if I would have hit record on that conversation, a lot of other people would have heard that story. I wouldn't be telling it to you now.
As you're thinking back, because again, you've interviewed a wide array of folks. Have there been favorites? I mean, who over the years? I mean, who is just folks that you've talked to and you just went, wow, I would just love to talk to them again. It's just so much fun. Or maybe you've gone back a couple times and talked to them again. Do you have like a top 3 list, maybe? I mean, with the exception of Chris Whaley. I mean, I know he's at the top of the list, but other than that, who else might be out there?
Well, one of the people that I've had on Kingdom Builder more than any other guest, and I've actually lost count. We were joking about this when I talked to him recently. But Michael Sweet from Striper is one that I've had on my show probably a dozen times, and I enjoy talking to him every single time because I know with Michael, he's not going to sugarcoat anything. If I ask him a question, he's going to answer honestly. And I talked to him recently about his new solo record, The Master Plan, which a great record. But he was also, we did a second conversation where we were able to talk about, and this will come out later this year, I think in September, October, but we talked about just the impact of the record To Hell with the Devil, which was like their biggest record. And the 40th anniversary of that record's coming up. And I always enjoy talking to Michael. Another guest that I've had on my show, I think 5 times now, is Jonathan Cain from Journey. I spoke with him recently about his new solo record, Only a Prayer Away. And then we also did another conversation that'll be coming up in July for the 45th anniversary of the Journey's Escape record, which was his first record with the band. So I've always enjoyed catching up with him. But one of the this is not somebody I've interviewed, but this is probably one of the most exciting things I have ever got to do. Something I never ever thought I could do. I grew up a massive fan of Chuck Norris. He's always been one of my favorite actors. Chuck was a Christian, really honored and glorified the Lord with his life. And I found out he was going to be in Orlando May a couple years ago, and I'm like, this guy's 84 years old at the time. I'm like, I'm shocked that he is still doing these like comic book conventions and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I actually got to go and meet him. And I know this wasn't an interview, but I've never been so excited to meet somebody in my entire life. And I waited in line 3 hours to meet him. And when I got up to him, he wasn't like any other like big celebrity I've met. He didn't like just say hi, sign something by like for 2 seconds. I actually had probably a good 5 minutes, my wife and I, to sit there and talk with him. And the whole time he's talking with me, he has his hand on my shoulder, just has a huge smile on his face. And I remember just walking away after getting a huge hug. I got to hug Chuck Norris, which was awesome. And I just remember walking away from that experience just like all jittery and stuff, like thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just met Chuck Norris. And I never got to interview him. And it wasn't due to the lack of trying. I sent his publicist probably a dozen emails. His publicist was probably very familiar with me and telling me no all the years, but that was probably the most like significant one that I was able to meet, wanted to interview, but never did.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful for that because, you know, he passed away last month. And that's definitely at the top of my bucket list of people that I've been able to, you know, be around. I mean, he was an amazing person, and it was just a great experience.
Well, is there a guest that you think gave the boldest testimony about standing for Christ in a secular world?
A lot of the film people I've talked to over the years, you know, there's been a lot of them that have been very, I think one of the earliest ones that I spoke to, you know, I did an interview with Neil McDonough a couple of years ago. Him and his wife do a lot of work with Angel Studios and everything. He's very vocal about his faith in Hollywood. There's quite a few like that. I remember, you know, Kirk Cameron was another one of those that I had met early on. I got a chance to meet and interview him in person, and he gets dinged a lot now because of his faith and, you know, being outspoken in Hollywood and stuff. But there's quite a few of them that are. One of the most recent ones I talked to Daniel Roebuck recently, and I can't wait for people to see that conversation because he said that he has lost opportunities with films because he's outspoken about his faith and what he believes in. And he's like, you know what? He's like, like, God called me to do this. I'm going to stand for that. And if people don't like it, he's like, I can't always control that. Yeah. So for me, it's like really cool. And like going back to the Clint Lowry conversation, the guitarist from Seven Dust, he's been very vocal about his faith, and they have a new record coming out in May, and that Christian faith really comes out on this new record. I've got a chance to hear a couple early tracks from the record, and there's a song on there that I could like really say that it's like kind of a praise and worship song, and it's just incredible because I've been listening to those guys since '97, and it's really cool to see what God has done in his life and just the stand he takes for Jesus now, and I can say that about so many people that I've had the pleasure of having on Kingdom Builder over the years, is that the biggest ones are just not afraid to mention the name of Jesus, and I think that's awesome.
Jay, as you've talked to folks, has you ever been, or anything come to mind by way of an interview that you've done where as you're talking, the guest is sharing a story and all of a sudden you find yourself getting emotional, kind of, where, I mean, it moves you to tears. I mean, it just is so emotionally charged, and it shuts you down just a little bit.
I've had a couple like that. I remember doing one with Mark Hall from Casting Crowns probably 3 years ago. My first wife, Shannon, passed away in 2021 from COVID. And we were together for 18 and a half years. We were married 16 and a half of those years. We have 5 kids together. And I was just going through a season of my life where I was like, I just didn't know what to do. And that was one of my first interviews that I had done, that I'd came back, because I had taken about a year off, a little over a year off, after she passed away, and just didn't do anything. And that was one of the first interviews I did when I came back. And I just remember that conversation wasn't supposed to be about what I went through. It was supposed to be about the impact that Casting Crowns and their ministry had. But I mentioned the song Scars in Heaven, which came out probably about 3 months before my wife had passed away. And I just remember how impactful and emotional I got when I first heard that song, because it reminded me of people that have, you know, people that I know, friends and family that are in heaven now. And I just remember asking Mark about that song, and he was just sitting there just being totally honest with me about why he wrote it. And I'm sitting here with tears streaming down my face, which is not really what I wanted to do in an interview. I don't want to be sitting here getting all emotional, but I was really caught up in that moment. And there's been a couple times in interviews over the last 5 years where I have gotten like that, where I have no intention on mentioning my wife and what happened. But then something they said makes me like, it gives me an opportunity to open up and be honest about what I went through.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, there has to be other people that have gone through what I went through. They've lost a wife, they've lost a child, they lost somebody that meant the world to them. Yeah. And how are they dealing with it? Like, I want to encourage people like that. So yeah, I've gotten emotional in interviews, and just in real life, you know, like I'm remarried now. My wife is amazing. She's such a blessing in my life. But even now, like small things will bring back memories and get me emotional. And I try not to let those seep into my interviews, but sometimes they kind of do that. But the feedback that I've gotten is like, man, people love seeing that transparency.
They do.
They're like, you know when we watch something that you do, that this is the real deal. This is real. You're not, I mean, you have questions you're asking, but your answers aren't scripted. This is real life, and you're answering honestly. And those are to me are the best conversations, when a conversation flows to where it's like basically just a casual conversation that turns into something that could really have impact on people that maybe went through the same thing I did, or are going through something that nobody even knows about, and something that we've done helps them, you know, realize that even though they feel sometimes God's not there, He is. He's always there.
Okay. Well, it's just not just doing time together. You're doing life together in that moment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're opening the door, and here we are. Yeah.
Most inspiring guest?
I think recently there are two of them, two brothers, Joel and Luke Smallbone from For King and Country, have done so much in the music industry the last like 10 years. And just, you know, Luke went through a really big health scare years ago, and he was sharing about it in the interview I did with him. And it's really cool to see how God works.
Okay.
And stuff like that. And they're just as honest with their interviews as I am with the stuff that I do. So I think that's really cool.
All right. Most entertaining guest?
Oh, man. Mike Weaver from Big Daddy Weave. I had him. I've gotten to know him very well. He's really cool. Was a fun interview. Tim Timmons also did. He was the character that the movie I Can Only Imagine 2 was based on. He's such a funny guy in real life, and I enjoyed that conversation as well.
Who would you rebook tomorrow?
I would have Michael Sweet on again. I love having him on my show. He's such a cool guy. Yeah. And John Schlitt from Petra. I always enjoy catching up with him as well.
Jeff, we got some dead air time. What are you doing?
Chris, I'm looking at the Church at 434 app. It's an incredible app. It's absolutely free. And you can watch us, you can watch video, you can get resources for your walk and your journey of faith, and it's absolutely free. Just go to the Church at 434 and your app store, Google Play, and just download it and join us online all the time. As you think back on the interviews and the people you've interviewed, have you ever finished up an interview and just kind of, as you wrapped it up, you know, went to the editing process and you thought to yourself, man, this is why we do Kingdom Builder? I mean, who was that interview?
One of the ones I did recently that was like that I really felt like that when I was done doing the interview, and I was so excited to share this interview because he got so emotional during our interview that it teared me up just hearing the stories and just the miraculous things that God did in his life. And that was with Russ Taff. I did an interview with Russ Taff a couple of years ago, and he's been in the industry for a long, long time. And he was getting so emotional during our conversation with the questions I was asking him. I kind of felt bad because I told him at the end, I'm like, dude, I didn't mean to make you cry. He's like, no. He's like, you just asked questions that really invoked a lot of thought. And when I thought back about those things, they made me emotional. Yeah. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm glad because I think this would be a great opportunity to share this. And he's like, yeah. And I said, you sure you don't want me to edit out like the tears and stuff? He's like, no. He's like, we want to keep that. So when that interview was done, I always sit back and watch the interview I did in its entirety before I do any editing. And when I watched that, I'm like, wow. I said, just the raw honesty, transparency, and emotion in this interview was like, I'm so excited to share this with people because, like I said before, it's like people that may just come across their videos accidentally or were sent a link by a friend or family or something like that, having no idea who I am, who the guest is, or what Kingdom Builder is, just the response that they might have to the interview. So that particular one was like, okay, I really hope that this one can impact people because was speaking on things that I know many, many people go through.
Sure.
So it was one of those conversations that really stuck with me, and I was just really excited to share it with people.
As you're going back and thinking about people you've interviewed, who really just stands out as someone who just really is just pushing back against that with a bold, powerful testimony in an industry that, tends to, at least on the surface, look like it wants to go the other direction? Who is that?
I did an interview with Kevin Sorbo on the red carpet of a film in Orlando about 5 years ago, and he's one of the very outspoken ones that told me in the interview. He's like, I say things that people, especially in Hollywood, don't want to hear, but it's the truth. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and I'm not going to stop speaking that truth. And I've gotten that with a lot of interviews I've done with people in Hollywood. It's just they just want people to know that, hey, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. I'm going to say and do things that you may not agree with, but I'm going to stand firm on that because that's what I believe. And I think people that are in Hollywood that have been embedded in Hollywood for so long, I think those are the ones that I find that I respect the most because of their platform. Like God gives us all platforms. You two have platforms as pastors. I have the platform, as doing podcasts and doing this ministry. But then God has put these people in platforms in Hollywood, and just the ones that are outspoken about their faith and what they believe in, despite getting like criticized and crucified in the media for their stance and for their beliefs, continue to do so because they feel that, hey, we're here a short time. Life is but a vapor. We're not going to be here that long. Let's make the best of the time God's given us. Let's step on some toes. Let's offend people for Christ. And those are the people that I really enjoy talking to. Those are the most meaningful conversations. And I'm so thankful that over the last 18 years, I've got to talk to so many people that work in Hollywood, that work in films, that are they just stand firm on the gospel of Jesus. And I just think that's awesome. Okay,
so 18 years, you've been interviewing folks now. Give me a couple names that are on your bucket list because they'll probably watch this show. And you're wanting to interview that you haven't had the opportunity to talk to yet because Chris can hook you up with anybody. So, who's out there that you're just after and want to interview?
There's been people that I noticed on your show. There's a couple people. I think you mentioned Kane. I would love to talk to him.
He's great.
Mark Marrow is somebody I've wanted to have here on the show for a while. There's Jim Caviezel is one of the ones that I've always wanted to interview. I came this close to getting him for Sound of Freedom, but I got Alejandro Monteverdi, the director of the film, instead, which was a great interview too. Sure. The movie was really good. Highlighted the fact that human trafficking still exists in this world. Yeah. Chuck Norris was at the top of that list. And in fact, when I met him, his wife was basically his handler. And I asked her, I said, what is the chance I could get Chuck on our podcast? I said, I've always wanted to have him. I told her what Kingdom Builder was, and she said, I know that he would love to be on there, but at the time, I think he was losing some of his hearing. He wasn't able to hear as well. So that's why you really didn't see a whole lot of interviews, which I don't think that was common knowledge. I don't even think that was out there, but she told me that his hearing was starting to go a little bit. But in the Christian music industry, one of the ones that I have not been able to interview that I would love to have is Amy Grant. I've been fortunate enough to meet her a couple times. She's an amazing, amazing person. I've never interviewed her, though. She's one of my bucket list items. But honestly, like, if I made a list of everybody I wanted to have on the show, I pretty much had everybody that I've ever wanted. There's only a couple that I haven't had on here.
That's cool.
And I feel so blessed to have had all of the people, and the majority of the people I've had on the show have been dropped in my lap. It's like the ones that I never ever thought I could get. If you told 15-year-old Jay that you would do interviews with this person, you'd meet this person, you'd be hanging out backstage with this person and doing this, I would have thought you were absolutely crazy. And the biggest one was, if somebody would have told me that, when I was 35, I'd meet this cool pastor that they made a movie after named Chris Whaley, I would have been like, get out of town.
Yeah.
No way. No way.
Yeah. How about Mercy Me? Mercy Me. You ever interviewed?
I just interviewed Bart Millard a couple weeks ago. He's the lead singer of Mercy Me. In fact, that interview just went up a couple days ago. But I've had a chance to meet him and the band a couple times. There's not too many people I haven't met in person either. I've been very blessed to be able to meet just about everybody I've ever wanted to meet over the years.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, I imagine that was an emotional one because his dad was really, really bad to him. And you guys had a lot in common there. Yeah, and
he has history here in Lakeland too, where I live at. So
really?
He's from Texas, Oklahoma, but the very, very beginning of Mercy Me actually started here in Lakeland, where he was an intern for a youth pastor here in Lakeland, and then ended up getting 3 of the guys from Mercy Me and then going up to Oklahoma and officially launching the band. So
wow, I did not know that.
A little bit of history on Mercy Me here in Florida.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Jay, you've been so kind and generous with your time. We do have to wrap this up because if we don't, our director here is going to have to go home and eat dinner or whatever. But at the end of the day,
we could talk forever, man.
We could keep going, but let's tell folks how they can connect with you, find out what you're doing, what's going on, how they can reach out and get a hold of you. Because we one of the things we love to do was we interview folks is love to connect our audiences and. So, tell them how to find you and anything you want to talk about that's coming up next, anything you want to promote. That's great. We'd love for you to do that.
Yeah, so the website that we do is called Today's Christian Entertainment. You can find it at todayschristianent.com. And that's basically the hub of everything that we do for podcasts, interviews, music, all that kind of coverage. And that links to everywhere else. Kingdom Builder is actually on YouTube. It's Kingdom Builder Podcast. If you go into YouTube and search Kingdom Builder Podcast, and I can send you the link to include in this video. But we're just, we've been doing this for a long time. And as long as God keeps opening doors for us to continue this ministry work, we're going to keep doing that, continue to be faithful to honor and glorify God with everything we do. And, we appreciate everybody that comes by to check out the content. Because we're all pointing back to the same person, and that's Jesus Christ. And I just pray that he gets all the honor and glory and praise for everything that we're doing.
Right. He's using it in a powerful way, and so I don't see any end in sight for you. So that's exciting. So I'm pumped and really thrilled that you're with us today.
Yeah, it's been great.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm thankful that you guys had me on here. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you for being with us, and don't tap out.